Lawyers negotiated for his surrender with the Los Angeles police, and then in what was described to us as a 15-minute window, he and Cowling simply disappeared from the house while the lawyers, a doctor, and a psychiatrist were upstairs. They disappeared downstairs. They have been traced, we are told, by the LAPD, partly by the license plate on this vehicle and partly by intercepting telephone calls made from the vehicle. Much of this is not confirmed by the police, but that's what we believe we know as of now.
Peter, do we have reason to believe that the negotiating has been going on through that cellular phone?
We haven't the vaguest idea, Hugh.
I wonder.
Al Cowlings just went back to the car and got into the driver's seat.
We can see him, Jenny.
Okay.
It was the Associated Press which reported that he had held a gun to his head during the chase. It really wasn't a chase. It's been, as we said, a cavalcade, or with the police clearly not wishing to interfere with him on the ground, which may simply have indicated they knew where he was going, were simply prepared to bide their time till either he arrived somewhere in a more controlled environment, or, for that matter, the Bronco ran out of gas. But here he is now in the front driveway of his home in Brentwood, which, of course, he, in some ways, is symbolic of the great success he had in his life. And he talked about that in his letter this evening. He said, "Don't feel sorry for me. I've had a great life." Because he succeeded first as an athlete, then as a television commentator. He succeeded as a spokesman, and he succeeded as a... Al Michael talked to this point briefly, an enormously popular American figure, reminding us of how much we invest in our football or in our sports heroes.
And not only that, Peter, but a man who was very comfortable in that role. O.J. loves being O.J. And in a neighborhood, and when you look at this neighborhood, understand there are a tremendous amount of high-profile people around there as Al Cowlings again has come out of the car.
That's pretty obvious what Cowling is doing. He's asking the police in the back to get down. There's a wall. You can't see it in your picture moment. There's a wall just to the left of the grass there, which marks the perimeter of the property. And there are not only police in the house itself, those who took his son away, but police around the perimeter of the wall, all of whom, or many of whom at least, some of whom have their weapons drawn.
The sun is setting here.
There's Cowling again. It's praying, or beseeching, I should say, beseeching people to please either get down or stay calm. It does perhaps signify that if O.J. Simpson feels comfortable that he's not going to be a target, he might decide to get out of this vehicle and go somewhere. And again, Cowling, you can see the wave of his hand, just a little, get down, please, be calm. Now, angry, give us a break, go away. Surely must be what he's saying.
Al, Peter, when O.J. Simpson said in that letter, "I've had a very good life," how old is he now?
46.
46.
And without talking about superficial matters at the moment, because we're looking at a life and death situation here, this house in Brentwood, represents so much of which he has achieved. And yet, we remind ourselves and remind you that the Los Angeles Police Department, District Attorney, is convinced that he is the only suspect, to the best of our knowledge, and been charged with 2 counts of murder. His former wife and a friend on Sunday night at her condominium, only 2 miles from where you are watching this transpire. It's actually not O.J. Simpson's car. It's Al Cowling's car. We are told his license plate was the one they were able to trace. The psychiatrists who have been attending him for the last several days regarded him as suicidal. everything those of us in the public know about him indicate that he's a very strong character, as we've watched over the last several days, the determination of this man on the football field. Again, it just seems perfectly clear that Cowling wants everybody to be calm. Just going to ask everybody to be quiet for a moment. We have on the phone with us as well Robert Higgins, who lives in the neighborhood and is on the ground and can see inside the van. Mr. Higgins.
Yes, how are you?
Just about as tense as you are, sir.
Oh, my Lord, this is quite the tensest.
What can you see?
Oh, what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at the van, and I see O.J. kind of slouching down, looking very, very upset. Now, look at here. He looked very upset. I don't know what he gonna be doing.
Can you see him doing anything specific? Is he merely sitting there?
He is just sitting around, you know, just looking like he'd be very nervous.
Can you hear anything, Mr. Higgins?
It's just too much commotion. I be in the back of a news van, so I can't really hear that good, but I can see it all. And I see O.J. I see O.J., man, and he looks scared. And I would be scared because there's cops all deep in this.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins.
And baba booey to y'all.
The driveway of O.J. Simpson's home in Brentwood. Clearly an effort being made to have him come out of the vehicle. In the doorway of the house, his friend, Al Cowling.
Peter, by the way, just for the record, this is Al Michaels. That was a totally farcical call. Lest anybody think that that was somebody who was truly across the street. That was not. He said something in code at the end that's indicative of the mentioning of the name of a certain radio talk show host.
Okay, thanks, Al.
So he was not there.
All right, we have them on every coast. Thank you very much. Not the first time nor the last time will have been had, but... If the police do get their hands on O.J., he will be taken to the Los Angeles County Men's Jail, where he will be held until a preliminary hearing is held, which is normally 2 weeks after he's arraigned. You probably already know from earlier today that various blood samples from the scene of the crime match his, but other blood samples of his have been sent away for a more intense DNA analysis. There's been all sorts of talk all week about pieces of evidence here, pieces of evidence there. The district attorney said earlier this evening that while the murders had been committed with a knife, a fairly substantial knife, they did not have possession of the murder weapon.
Peter, there have been some...
Barbara, quiet for a second, please. Sorry. My apologies, but
yes.
He's coming out.
Okay.
I believe. Where's... Sorry, go ahead, please, Barbara. No, it's Cowling again. Sorry, Barbara, go ahead.
There have been some reports that when he is arraigned, that he would be in the cell next to Eric Menendez, which is currently empty. This is what we had heard today, and it's just something to add to what might happen in the future.
Al Michaels and the district attorney have all said it so eloquently. This is just excruciatingly sad. Yes, indeed, tense, full of sadness. Sadness for the victims, for the children, who of course are also victims. And so sad to see a man who has represented so much to Americans through his example, some of his examples, because spousal abuse is anything but an example to be admired, and that aspect of his private behavior, and in one case his public behavior, have only recently come to light for the great majority of us who've not paid that close attention to him in latter years.
Peter,
just to people who've just joined us in case now, we are looking at a white Bronco in the driveway of O.J. Simpson's home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, which has come to a stop there several minutes ago after a 50-mile tour of the Los Angeles freeways. This vehicle, accompanied by an enormous number of police cars, police helicopters, and in one case for us, the Channel 5 KTL ATV news helicopter. And that's where they have been so far on a manhunt that's lasted more than 5 hours. Earlier today, O.J. Simpson was charged with 2 counts of murder with special circumstances. They have been driving around. Nobody quite knew where he was going. They thought he might at one point be going to his mother. There'd clearly been some speculation when he disappeared from a residence where he had been in seclusion for the last several days, last 3 days anyway, according to Al Michael, that he might even be trying to leave the country. He's with his friend Al Cowlings, who we went to school with at USC and played with in the Buffalo Bills, trying to coax him out of that car, or at least trying to create the circumstances by which he might come out of the car safely. That seems to be the clear message we're getting at the moment. Police are in the house, all over the place, just over the wall on the property to the left. Police apparently traced this vehicle through a combination of factors. 2 principal ones were the license plates and a series of telephone calls. Just before O.J. Simpson was to have been arrested in the residence where he was today, he made several phone calls, one to his children, one to his mother, and one to his personal lawyer, all of this according to his lawyer, Bob Shapiro, who gave a very gripping and very lengthy news conference earlier today. Al Michaels, do you reckon, is that his son in the doorway?
I don't recognize him as his son, no. It's conceivable it was a wide-angle helicopter shot we had before, and that clearly could have been Jason Simpson in the initial shot. I do not see him in the doorway right now, though.
Thank you. In this letter, which O.J. wrote, one of 3, just before he was due to be arrested, he thanked everybody who knew him. He said he'd had a good life. He asked people not to feel sorry for him, but he said that he could not go on. This is outside the residence in Brentwood. Save the Juice, of course, one of his, well, his most definitive nickname when he played ball. And all along the route today, there has been this strange scene of people either cheering him on or perhaps just cheering the bizarreness of all this. Perhaps people just wanting to be noticed in their own right, who knows, but whether they're aware they're cheering a man who's been accused of multiple murder, whether they're cheering a man who, as we heard earlier on the news, was a role model for so many people in the country, or whether they are just simply participating in this drama. Probably all of the above.
Peter, he appears to think that maybe the police cars and the helicopter camera will just go away. You suppose that's in his mind?
I haven't the vaguest idea, Hugh. These are scenes we've witnessed before, of course. We've seen hostage situations before. We've seen situations of people on the edges of buildings, on the edges of bridge. But what has made this so intimate for so many people in the country is because so many of us know this guy, either in person, as so many of us do at ABC, so many of us because we've watched him over the years, either as a spokesman for Hertz or a football player or a sports commentator. And also because modern technology now has enabled us to be there for all of this time since the police first identified this vehicle.
Have not known and could have no way of knowing is the difference between the public man with that gentle face and that, you know, that lovely demeanor, and the private turmoil of this man and what has been described by their friends as a passionate, tumultuous relationship. And it's very hard to reconcile the two parts of this man, the love that everyone feels opposite so many of these things that we don't know, or heard that there had been a beating up incident some years ago, but then we never heard anything else. And so this comes as such a shock to most people who have no idea of what the emotional history was.
Nicole Brown Simpson, 35, Ronald Goldman, 25, brutal murder with a knife on Sunday night. And this man, who we all know so well, the man charged with their murders. Not just to fill up time by any means, but let me, as we're watching this, read a little bit to you from the letter read by his friend Robert Kardashian earlier, saying that O.J. Simpson wrote it today, to whom it may concern. First, everyone understand, I have nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her. I always have, and I always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much. Recently, we came to the understanding that for now, we were not right for each other, at least for now. Despite our love, we were different, and that's why we mutually agreed to go our separate ways. These are O.J. Simpson's words. It was tough splitting for a second time, but we both knew it was for the best. Inside, I had no doubt that in the future we would be close friends or more. Unlike what has been written in the press, Nicole and I had a great relationship for most of our lives together. Like all long-term relationships, we had a few downs and ups. In the driveway of his Brentwood home, O.J. Simpson sits alone in a vehicle, perhaps with a weapon. He goes on here in a reference to what Barbara has been talking about, the charge of wife abuse in 1989, O.J. Simpson's words, I took the heat New Year's 1989 because that's what I was supposed to do. I did not plead no contest for any other reason but to protect our privacy, and was advised it would end the press hype. I don't want to belabor knocking the press, but I can't believe what is being said. Most of it is totally made up. I know you have a job to do, but as a last wish, please, please, please leave my children in peace. Their lives will be tough enough.
Peter, the children we have heard, and I said this a little earlier, are with and will be living with Nicole Simpson's parents.
The letter continues, and by the way, all of the picture here you're seeing now is being done by Channel 5 in Los Angeles. That's their helicopter. And that is their insert they're putting in of the crowd. A.J. Simpson continues in this letter today, I want to send my love and thanks to all my friends. I'm sorry I can't name every one of you. Especially A.C. Man, thanks for being in my life. The support and friendship I received from so many. Wayne Hughes, Louis Marks, Fred Olson, Mark Packer, Bender, Bobby Kardashian. I wish we'd spent more time together in recent years. My golfing buddies, Haas, Alan Hostin, Mike, Craig, Bender, Weiler, Sandy, J. Donnie. Thanks for the fun. All my teammates over the years. Reggie, you were the soul of my pro career. Ahmed, I never stopped being proud of you. Marcus, you've got a great lady in Catherine. Don't mess it up. Bobby Chandler, thanks for always being there. Skip and Kathy, I love you guys. Without you, I never would have made it through this far. Marguerite, his first wife, thanks for the early years. We had some fun. Paula, what can I say? You were special. I'm sorry. We're not going to have our chance.
I'm getting something in my throat.
God brought you to me. I now see, as I leave you, you'll be in my thoughts.
Okay.
I think of my life and feel I've done most of the right things, so why do I end up like this? I can't go on. No matter what the outcome, people will look and point. I can't take that. I can't subject my children to that. This way, they can move on and go on with their lives. Please, if I have done anything worthwhile in my life, let my kids live in peace from you, the press. I've had a good life. I'm proud of how I lived. My mama taught me to do unto others. I treated people the way I wanted to be treated. I've always tried to be up and helpful. So why is this happening? I'm sorry for the Goldman family. O.J. writes, I know how much it hurts. Nicole and I had a good life together. All this press talk about a rocky relationship was no more than what every long-term relationship experiences. All her friends will confirm that I've been totally loving and understanding of what she has been going through. And he comes to the end of this letter, which was read earlier tonight. At times, I felt like a battered husband or boyfriend, but I loved her. Make that clear to everyone. And I would take whatever it took to make it work. Don't feel sorry for me. I've had a great life, great friends. Please think of the real O.J. and not this lost person. Thanks for making my life special. I hope I helped yours. Peace and love, O.J.
Peter, this is Al. Just as a point of information here, because he mentioned a few people by their first names and initials. In the letter, AC is Al Cowlings, who is with him now. Reggie would be Reggie McKenzie, who was an offensive guard with Buffalo. The Marcus he refers to is Marcus Allen, now of Kansas City, and his longtime buddy and fellow SC alumnus. And Paula is a woman friend of O.J.'s who he has been seeing for a number of months. And he and Nicole, of course, were divorced in 1992, and that is who Paula is. I find it interesting, Peter. I spoke with O.J. on a cellular phone briefly yesterday, and the first thing he said was, I have to get out of the media business. So clearly, as an inveterate television watcher through this process and this ordeal, he has been watching a lot of television and reading the newspapers as well. And he's very, very bitter.
He said that you should get out of the television business, or he had to?
No, he said, I have to get out, meaning him, O.J. I have to get out of the media business. He sounded, by the way, extremely despondent and very sedated.
Well,
and
he has been for the last couple of days under heavy sedation, heavy medication, extremely despondent, suicidal in the view of his doctors and of his lawyer. Al, the light is fading there, am I right?
Yes, it is. Peter, it's sunset in Los Angeles.
Peter, this is Judy. West Los Angeles police have been placed on tactical alert, and the reason for that, we're told, is crowd control. Apparently, this spectacle, and I guess that's what we should call it, has attracted huge crowds, and they are putting out extra officers to deal with that. Also, in crime broadcasts to officers on their tactical radio frequencies, the LAPD is warning that Simpson should be considered armed and dangerous. So I would guess that means he's armed.
Oh.
Well, the crowd outside the house is growing large. We've had a couple of glimpses of it up until now. And you have, Judy, used, again, as you so often do, precisely the correct word. This is spectacle, sad spectacle, certainly, but spectacle.
He may be waiting for the dark. I don't. That's obviously a guess, a speculation, but there's something calming about the dark, and it could be a better time to negotiate an end to this, although it'll be more difficult for us to see.
It was interesting to hear his lawyer say earlier today that they were never concerned that he might run. And when they disappeared from the residence, do you know precisely, Al, where it was that he was staying? And he was in the San Fernando Valley in a very large house, it's described.
He was at the home of a friend in the San Fernando Valley. Yes, he was, Peter.
And a very large house. Apparently the doctors were upstairs at the time when the Los Angeles police had actually arrived to arrest him because the LAPD had been frustrated that the agreement they had made with his lawyer, Bob Shapiro, and he had not been fulfilled. He was supposed to have given himself up at 11 o'clock this morning, Los Angeles time, and then it became 12 o'clock, and the LAPD sent out a black and white car to get him. The police officers were apparently very polite, and in that very narrow space of time, he and Al Cowlings disappeared. But they were never concerned that he might run. The doctors and the lawyer were upstairs having a consultation primarily about how they might accompany him down to police headquarters, because they were at that point so profoundly worried about the suicidal nature of him.
Peter, I have to assume that the L.A. Police Department had to have known his whereabouts. He was there for almost 72 hours, and I do know that he was shepherded off his property, out of the view of the media, and there is a way to do that, onto an adjacent property and onto an adjacent street, and that's how he was removed on Tuesday.
Well, Al Cowling continues to try to make an arrangement, I suppose, is the best terminology. Judy Muller, I must say we can hear you making the phone call. It continues to try to make an arrangement for him to get out.
Yes.
This is clearly the last person he trusts. They grew up together in a San Francisco housing project. It was Cowling on Thursday's funeral for Nicole Simpson, who was really the gatekeeper, who let in people who were familiar and who did not. They grew up in the project. Yes, Judy?
We just heard from a producer, one of our producers who's outside the compound with a camera crew, and he said the crowd is just growing enormous, a few hundred people now, right outside the house, and the police are moving in to try to control that. But he said people from everywhere, all over the city, and all races, and a lot of them holding up signs that are supportive of O.J.
Just a slight guidance for you, Judy. Every time you go off and make a phone call, they forget to close your microphone, so...
Peter, not only is the light fading there, but I'm thinking about the gas gauge on that helicopter.
Yes, I have been as well, Hugh.
Just wonder how long they'll be up there.
He's talking to him. He doesn't hear him. You do hear him. Okay. Talk to him again.
Who's talking to me?
Who's talking to him? Keep talking.
A little after 8:30 now in Los Angeles time,
Peter. I hear Peter.
as Al Cowlings tries to make an arrangement by which O.J. Simpson, 46 years old, widely regarded by his doctors and by his lawyers as suicidal, by the police as armed and dangerous, continues to sit there in this white Bronco, charged with 2 counts of murder, and convincing much of the world earlier this evening that it was over for him, that he had nowhere to go, that he could not go on under these circumstances. But these are 2 guys who had a rough beginning in San Francisco. Cowlings is 47. He's had a career that has been, though, anything but as great as somebody described earlier, in lockstep. Al Michaels, do you know Cowlings well?
Yes, I know him quite well.
Kind of man you'd want with you in a situation like this?
I would describe him as a gentle giant. He has been a surrogate father to O.J.'s children. He was a good friend of Nicole's, and he's had an unwavering friendship with O.J. through the years.
One of the things that has caught my attention today, in which people are trying to find the balance between O.J., the person they admire, and O.J., the man charged with murder, and between Nicole, the victim, and O.J., is how many people thought so well of her. His friends out.
Peter, I had talked earlier to her closest friend, the wife of Bruce Jenner, Kris Jenner, who was supposed to have had lunch with her. She had an appointment to meet her at 11:30 that day. When she called to say, where is Nicole? Is she going to show up? She heard then of the murder. She describes her as the most sensitive and loving friend, totally devoted to her children, as someone who brought all of them together, and she said, please just say what we are all saying. We miss you, Nicole. We miss you, Nicole. She evidently
9 they are, who, assuming everybody has acted properly, have been totally isolated from this. There's not much we can provide at the moment in the way of expertise as to what is transpiring at the moment, but if you think back to other situations like this with an armed man, as we're told O.J. Simpson is, and a heavily armed police force wishing this to be resolved in a peaceful manner, the rule of thumb is always time. Time is always the ally of the negotiator. And so there is never any urgency with a good negotiator in these kind of circumstances to rush the character, in this case O.J. Simpson, out of the situation, particularly given the fact that he is not now in a situation to do harm to other people, certainly in a position to still do some harm to himself, but he is not in a position, as best we can tell, to do a lot of harm to other people, unless he has a gun and starts to shoot it, but one assumes that the police in this particular environment have considered that. It is always, in a situation like this, the job of the negotiator to let the principal, in this case O.J. Simpson, talk, to be heard, to say whatever it is that's on his mind and to try to play back to that, never to be the aggressor in terms of negotiating with someone you wish to extricate from a delicate situation.
Peter, this is an interesting bit of information. Can you hear me?
Please, Judy, go ahead.
The Los Angeles Police Air Support is asking media helicopters that they increase their altitude by 1,000 feet. And if not, the watch commander says he will ask the FAA to institute a flight restriction, removing all media choppers from the area over Brentwood. And the reason that request is being made, apparently, is because the police are unable to communicate with O.J. due to the noise.
We're not hearing the noise, of course, because what we have is a camera on board the KTLA helicopter, but not a microphone, at least not one that's picking up any of the helicopter sound. But you can now see that, at least in the case of this helicopter, he has gone higher as requested. Hugh Downs makes the point that he may have a limited amount of fuel. It's obvious to any of you who are watching the picture that it is getting dark, and so helicopters in a very short period of time without night sights are not going to be much good to anybody, except as a distraction for the police. And Judy, I don't know how you do it in Los Angeles. I'm always surprised, as you said earlier this evening, these car chases on the freeways have become a way of life for the news business out there. I'm a little surprised the police put up with it.
They do, as long as the helicopters obey the rules. There are a few hotshots out there who take chances and endanger it themselves and others. But in this case, it's interesting to me that what we've been enjoying, this wonderful picture, enjoying in terms of getting close to the story, may have been, in fact, interfering with the police ability to negotiate with O.J., which would be very sad. Paramedics are on their way to stand by. We just got that word, in case anybody's hurt.
Well, we're going to continue. It's 11:30 in the east and 8:30 in the west. We're going to continue with this coverage until it is resolved one way or the other, until it's resolved, to be more precise. There has been a real manhunt for the last 5 hours. The word was put out to all of the Los Angeles police authorities, all of the police authorities throughout California, on the border, when it was indeed considered by the authorities that O.J. and Al Cowling might make a run for it. That was certainly popular speculation for a while.
It makes you wonder where they thought they could run with someone that famous all over the world. That face is known.
Well, I've heard that said several times today. I must confess, I'm not sure this is a face known all over the world. It's certainly popular in America, but I'm not sure that the American football star is all that well known in Mexico or anywhere south of the border or overseas.
Well, Naked Gun, Hurts, there's those things. Mm-hmm. He is an actor and of some repute as well. Oh, not repute, but in terms of the visibility, I think it goes beyond the football at this point. However, even so, I think even within this country, it would be amazing for him to go unnoticed anywhere.
One of the most difficult things for a police negotiator at a time like this is that nobody in this situation is likely to be thinking very clearly. And again, I realize we're repeating ourselves in some cases, perhaps in many cases, but OJ has been under the care of 2 doctors for the last several days, one a psychiatrist, one an internist for at least 2 days. He has been heavily sedated. In terms of looking for clues, as so many people have, there was even a suggestion from Bob Shapiro, his lawyer, earlier today, that a lymph node had been found under his arm when the internist had first examined, which led people to question the state of his health, which contributed to speculation about the state of his health combined with the state of his mind and his circumstances. Now, this is tape, actually, there you saw, of the white Bronco, which had been out on the Los Angeles freeways for 50 or 60 miles, 50 miles to be precise, pulling into the Brentwood house. Did he live there alone, Al Michaels, in recent days?
Peter, in recent times, O.J. has always been the kind of guy whose house was open to the neighborhood and all of his friends. In fact, it was a playhouse. It had a great tennis court. Yes.
I apologize for interrupting. We're going to confuse people here. Let me come back to that in a second. Why don't we go to the live reporter of KTLA here, who's on the ground just outside the house there, and hear what he has to say. KBC.
We're trying to cover the story. They were not allowed past the crime tape initially, but they got in a few minutes later. There's another distraught neighbor, a woman who had just seen Simpson and the driver pull in front of the family home here just about an hour ago. And here's...
Okay, let's not just give you some sense there of the enormous pressure of the media on every square inch of this story. Al, I apologize. Go on about his lifestyle again at the end.
O.J. was loved by his neighbors because even though he lives in a gated estate behind hedges with 2 separate entries, 3 in fact, most of the time the gates were open, the neighborhood kids would come and go. He had a very wide circle of friends, and a good deal of the time, Peter, you would not be surprised to go onto the property and find 2 or 3 relatives and 2 or 3 friends staying from anywhere from 3 days to 2 months. It was an open house.
Peter, I understand that Robert Shapiro has arrived, at least that's a report we have from KABC, that is, as you know, O.J.'s lawyer.
Thanks very much, Judy. Robert Shapiro, who declared himself shocked and stunned that O.J. had disappeared from the house earlier today where he was with him. He is the one who has given us the only description we have of O.J. Simpson's state of mind earlier today, other than the letter which he wrote. But this has all transpired because the arrest agreement made between the Los Angeles police and Shapiro and O.J. Simpson went awry late morning California time. And the Los Angeles Police Department became unnecessarily upset by the time it was taking for O.J. Simpson to give himself up. He was, in the meantime, writing these letters to which we have referred and making several phone calls, among them one to his children, another to his mother, another to his personal lawyer, who is not Mr. Shapiro. Mr. Shapiro has said repeatedly today he has a professional relationship with Simpson, not a personal one. So then the police showed up at this home in the San Fernando Valley, and in that few minutes when nobody was paying particular attention to except Al Cowlings. And Mr. Shapiro said on several occasions that the reason they never had any thought of O.J. Simpson bolting, as he did, was because Cowlings was with him. And ultimately, of course, it was Cowlings and Simpson who bolted and who have ended up here some many hours later. But in the letter, O.J. Simpson saying, I had nothing to do, just everyone understand, I had nothing to do with Nicole's murder. Judy, where are these people, can you tell?
These are the people outside the mansion waiting out on the street. It's, as I said before, attracted quite a crowd. Several hundred people was the report I last heard. As I mentioned, West LA police have gone on tactical alert purely for crowd control. Brentwood's not used to this kind of media attention on these quiet, tree-lined, wealthy streets. These are the streets that people buy homes on so they can get away from people and get some privacy. And this street, for one, has had no privacy all week long. The neighbors have just about had it, and I imagine tonight is the pinnacle of that frustration.
This came as a tremendous surprise, apparently, to O.J., or at least the timing of it did, because though he has denied any involvement in the murder of his former wife and a male friend, he's been charged with 2 counts of murder, but he did not know at all what the district attorney was preparing, did not know the timing of it. Shapiro, his lawyer, said earlier today that they had thought that the process would take about a week. And Shapiro saying they were all upstairs at one point, the doctors and the lawyers, and O.J. Simpson was downstairs when the police were on their way to the house. And at one point, Shapiro said that he, O.J. Simpson, was wailing, a clear indication there to the state of mind he was in. He had not, he said, told O.J. that the police were coming. They came. They were very polite. There was some discussion about who would tell O.J. what would happen. Dr. Feinstein, or one of the doctors, I should say, Dr. Fernstein was apparently the psychiatrist, considered as to how he should be told. That they went into the room to tell him, and he was gone.
We have yet to hear the details of how they managed that. I understood them to be upstairs when they disappeared.
Downstairs, I believe, Judy.
Downstairs,
The doctors and the lawyer were upstairs in what Mr. Shapiro described as a conference room. We are, by the way, lest we confuse you again, looking at this rather long cavalcade along the Los Angeles freeways earlier today with clearly, just take a look at the cars on the other side of the highway. So many people alerted to this, not only by the presence of the police, but by listening to their radios, because there has been no other story anywhere on radio or television in Los Angeles today. And for that matter, I guess you'd have to say in much of the country. But all along the way here, there you see coming in behind the police escort, which never threatened the white Bronco the entire 50-mile journey, much of it at about 35 or 40 miles an hour, until they arrived in Brentwood.
What's astonishing to remember, Peter, is that when we woke up this morning, none of us knew that there would be necessarily an arrest, that he was still not being described as a suspect by the LAPD, and here we are at the end of this day, and so much has transpired between this morning and now. It is phenomenal.
And this is, I've lost track of the time here, but this is about maybe 34 minutes ago, and that is someone we believed, or Al Michaels, take another look.
Again, just from this angle, Peter, I do believe that is his older son. I have not seen him in a couple of years. If it is, he's gained a little bit of weight. He went to USC and was a running back as of 2 years ago. It's a little difficult to identify from a helicopter, but I believe it was.
His older son, Jason. And again, one of those moments, because so much of this has just been passage, but one of those moments where the agitation and the tension and the despair absolutely crystallizes.
Peter, earlier today, from that Bronco, O.J. Simpson made, or either he or his friend, made phone calls on that cellular phone, and that, we believe, is how the police were able to trace, by tracing those cellular calls, to find this vehicle and to lead up to the moments that you see now. Had there been no phone calls on that cellular phone, none of this might have happened, and who knows where that Bronco would have ended up.
Al Michaels, does the name Jim Hill mean something to you?
Jim Hill is a local sportscaster on the CBS affiliate, Peter, and a very good friend of O.J. that at our facility tonight, I happened to glimpse a peek at Channel 2, the local affiliate here, and Jim Hill was imploring O.J. to turn himself in, and they were telling us at the station that they were also simulcasting on the CBS radio affiliate, which is the all-news station, one of the all-news stations in Los Angeles, and Hill was hopeful that O.J. and Al Cowlings were tuned in to that station and were listening to the report, and he was imploring O.J. to turn himself in.
It's interesting you should say that, because the transcript of what he had to say has moved on the wires. Can't begin to tell you, O.J. and Al, how many people have called this station praying for you and wanting your safety. A lot of people believe that if you two keep up with what you're doing right now, that the worst is going to happen. People still love you, O.J. They don't want to remember you going this way. They want to remember you as an individual who stood up for what you thought, who faced the consequences no matter what. And they do not want to see this happen. So please, guys, turn on your emergency blinkers. Slow down, pull over to the side, and please surrender. Now, as we watch this car go along, at one point, indeed, the emergency blinkers were on. Just outside the house in Brentwood now, from KABC, ABC's affiliate station in Los Angeles, is Gary Gabriel. Gary, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Peter.
Can you set the scene for us?
It's a very surreal scene right now. About 300 yards to my left, O.J. Simpson is still sitting in his white Ford Bronco, presumably still with a handgun in his hand. And behind me, you could see a crowd of people who've come here, many of them cheering earlier, some of them waving signs saying, "We love juice, don't lose the juice," things of that nature. Someone earlier described it as a scene out of Dog Day Afternoon. That is exactly what's going on here, because right now police are still trying to negotiate with Simpson to try and get him out of his vehicle, as many of his supporters, hundreds of them at this point, are cheering for him just outside the police barricade right now.
Gary, can you hear anything? First of all, are the helicopters interfering as best you can tell with the police?
Are the helicopters? No, I don't think so. There's some family members walking behind us right now. I don't know if we can pan in that direction.
Go ahead.
These are family members, relatives of O.J. Simpson, who were very distraught earlier. They were among the hundreds of people who followed the motorcade of police vehicles who were behind the white Ford Bronco as it pulled into this exclusive community of Brentwood just about an hour ago. We're not sure what that signifies, the fact that the family members are leaving the scene right now. I have not heard an update from police officers just a few yards to my left. We've been stuck outside the police barricade right now. This woman here is believed to be O.J. Simpson's sister, the woman in green walking toward the police barricade, walking toward the Simpson household.
Okay, now just to make absolutely clear for me, Gary, these people are arriving at the house, not going away from the house.
Well, both, actually.
Okay.
Some family members left a few minutes ago. You saw their backs as they walked away from us. And then another family member stepped out of this car to my left and started walking toward the Simpson household. Very confusing at this point to ascertain exactly what's going on.
Gary, let's leave you with a charge here. We're just beginning to get in our ear reports that he has given himself up. Completely unconfirmed reports reaching my ear, and now yours, that O.J. has given himself up. We have lost the ability to see from the helicopter, so we cannot confirm that.
We will try to talk to police officers right now to confirm that ourselves.
Thanks, Gary. Gary Gabriel from KABC describing the scene. Yeah, Gary, please come back to us if you find out something. Gary Gabriel describing the scene as Dog Day Afternoon. For those of you who don't know it, the 1975 movie about the bank robbery, Al Pacino, with the hostages inside and the crowd on the outside chanting. Those of you who remember it, Attica, Attica. It has, on the other hand, been an original scene all unto itself. And we're told that Robert Shapiro, who was his number 2 choice as a lawyer, his earlier lawyer, stood down from the case, claiming that he had too much on his mind, and if I recall correctly at one point, because he was too involved personally. Mr. Shapiro has made the point that he has a professional relationship with O.J. Simpson. He's one of those people with a pretty big celebrity practice in California. Some question as to whether or not he was precisely the lawyer to call on in this case, according to our legal affairs correspondents here, but he made a very clear presentation earlier today of what he had done with the Los Angeles police today in terms of trying to facilitate O.J.'s surrender, and did say publicly that he was as surprised as anybody that all this had happened.
Peter, I believe that Robert Shapiro, you talk about his celebrity practice, was the attorney for Marlon Brando's son.
Christian, yes.
Yes, and Howard Weitzman, who was the attorney who had stepped down, had been, and I think still is involved with Michael Jackson. So both of them have had their share with celebrated, the most celebrated cases.
Peter?
Well, Barbara, this is perhaps one of the reasons people got so frustrated in the Los Angeles Police Department today, because the department has had more than its share of enormous celebrity cases, many of which you've dealt with, and for a while today, it did look like there was quite a lot of egg on a lot of people's faces, and the district attorney and the police spokesman were both very angry that this arrangement made between O.J. and his lawyer and the department for him to give himself up had gone awry. There's some question among legal analysts on the West Coast as to whether or not this was not special treatment, but all that seems rather in the past at the moment.
And CNN, City News Service, is reporting on a bulletin.
Judy, go ahead. Judy Muller?
Yes, Peter, one City News Service, wire service here, is reporting that he has been arrested in his driveway. Another helicopter reporter for another station here reported seeing O.J. get out of the car carrying what looked like 2 picture frames, perhaps with pictures in them. So he did see him get out of the car, and that is as much as we can get. We're trying to get the police to confirm it, but they have not yet so far.
Again, for those of you in the rest of the country, or for those of us in the rest of the country, you're getting a mixture of coverage here. You're looking at a picture from the helicopter belonging to Channel 5 in Los Angeles, KTLA. So that is their information. They're making a reference there to the letter which Robert Kardashian Simpson's friend had read earlier, which we just read to you in its entirety a short while ago. The reporter on the ground was Gary Gabriel from KABC, the ABC owned and operated station there. So we may be confusing you from time to time, but I hope not.
If so, it would be certainly good news if this ended peacefully after this tension and this drive and the reports of a gun in the car. That would, in a dismal story, at least be a bit of good news.
One of the other people who has joined us here this evening is our legal affairs correspondent, Cynthia McFadden, who's around somewhere. Cynthia, can you hear me?
Peter, it's Al Michaels.
Yes, Al.
I'm being told he's in custody.
Yeah.
There will be a news conference at 10 o'clock tonight, which is an hour and 4 minutes from now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Al, who's telling you that? Is someone official?
From our newsroom here, and was that confirmed by police? It has been confirmed by the police, is that correct? Yes, LAPD, Peter.
Okay, so the Los Angeles Police Department says that O.J. Simpson is in custody. It occurred, 11:56, just before midnight in the east, just before 9 o'clock in Los Angeles, and an excruciatingly long day for a great many people comes to a peaceful end, a tortured end, unquestionably, for many people, but a peaceful end, according to the Los Angeles Police Department. O.J. Simpson is in custody. And someone in my ear will tell me, I hope, what you should like us to do now. As I said, somewhere around here is our legal affairs correspondent, Cynthia McFadden. If someone can put a microphone on her, or don't just wave your hands at me, tell me what's happening. Thank you. 2 minutes, we'll have a chance to talk to our legal affairs correspondent, Cynthia McFadden, about the various players in the case. Now, this now, of course, becomes extremely important because with O.J. Simpson charged with 2 counts of murder, with special circumstances, which we'll try to explain to you again, no bail likely under these circumstances, and the possibility of a death penalty. Now comes the whole question of defense. Had this ended as people earlier today anticipated it might end, with the death of O.J. Simpson, and I base that only on the fact that his lawyer and his psychiatrist judged his letter to the public to be a suicide note, and then so many of these questions about legal procedure and the behavior of California, and whether or not this case has been now so prejudiced Let's listen to Gary Gabriel for a second.
In the courtyard, in the driveway of O.J. Simpson's home.
Can we pick up Gary Gabriel?
Waiting Simpson to give himself
He's
up.
talking to me.
That took place a few minutes ago. About 2 minutes ago, his family members, who are gathered on the other side of the police tape to my left by about 100 yards, exulted. They applauded. They hugged each other. They began weeping. It was a very emotional scene there. Apparently, we have confirmed that O.J. Simpson is safe and has been taken into custody.
Well, O.J. has, in fact, professed his innocence, Gary,
Okay.
and his family and his supporters.
Gary Gabriel, thank you much from KBC, a mix of you and KTLA.
His side of the
And
story,
let's listen to him
on
when he
the
answers
witness
his
stand
question.
with his attorney, and there is perhaps a collective sigh of relief all the way around that this ended peacefully tonight. A lot of pushing and shoving early on as you tried to cover that, though, Gary.
That's right. Collective sigh of relief. Depending on where you're standing, that sigh of relief was a scream of joy on this side of the tape. The hundreds of people who were chanting juice, juice, juice earlier were even more visibly exulted to hear that Simpson had in fact turned himself in. These folks, they still hear, as you'll recall earlier, if you pan to the left, Heather, you might be able to see some of the individuals who still are flashing the sign saying, "We love the juice, save the juice." In fact, their wishes have been answered. O.J. Simpson has turned himself in, and we're told that he's on his way to a police facility right now, presumably where there's a crowd of individuals walking behind us. If you can pan to the right, these are family members, Simpson family members. Careful, careful, watch out. Those are Simpson family members.
Its own special ordeal, having to...
One of those individuals, we're told one of those individuals is Simpson's sister. They just broke down the crime tape as they left. They had left in such a hurry. O.J.'s sister is what I'm told, yeah.
Gary,
They're followed by a crowd right now. The crowd that, until a second ago, continued to chant, "Juice, juice, juice."
Gary, we'll get back to you in just a minute. Linda Breakstone is downtown at Parker Center. The location we suspect that O.J. will be arriving at very shortly. Linda, if you can come in and tell us what you can see from your vantage point.
Well, Harold, nothing is going on here. Just camera crews are arriving because, of course, it is anticipated that they will bring O.J. Simpson here to the back and immediately book him here, followed by...
Well, we can tell you what's going to happen because the procedure doesn't change at all. O.J. Simpson will be taken, according to the police spokesman, to the Los Angeles County Men's Jail. He will be held there until a preliminary hearing is held, which is normally 2 weeks after arraignment. As you know, the legal authorities will decide later on whether or not to pursue the death penalty. We may be a long way from that. But there are an endless number of questions which have been raised earlier today, which now all become a good deal more relevant now that he is, in the words of the local reporter there, Gary Gabriel, safe. Perhaps a reflection of how people have identified with him today, albeit that he is charged with 2 counts of murder, murdering his former wife and a male friend on Sunday night, just about 2 miles from where he has given himself up finally to the Los Angeles police today. It's just a little after midnight now in the east, a little after 9 o'clock, and in about an hour from now, there's going to be a news conference, presumably held by the Los Angeles Police Department, and Nightline is going to cover that news conference in an expanded edition tonight. That's an advisory to our television stations, among other things around the country, to know what you can expect on Nightline later this evening. We are simply waiting now outside O.J.'s own home in Brentwood for him to be removed from the scene, though it's not, I suppose it's not automatic that he will be removed from the scene depending on his physical condition, but the authorities have repeatedly told us that he will be taken to the Los Angeles County Men's Jail. So from ABC News headquarters, we are going to leave you now with a day that you have all been able to share in, for better or for worse. O.J. Simpson in police custody in Los Angeles, 2 counts of murder. A special edition of Nightline coming up later this evening. And this, of course, has been a special edition of 2020. I'm Peter Jennings on behalf of Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs, who we interrupted this evening. Good night.